meltdown in Venezuela, it just keeps getting worse. We have exclusive footage of Venezuelans raiding a grocery truck for food and supplies. This is amid that state of emergency that's in the crippled nation. Also, another video, shocking video, shows starving citizens digging through garbage for food. So how did it get to this, and could that actually be America? Well, let's bring in Christian Whiten and Steve Rogers on that. Christian, listen, eventually you run out of other people's money. We know that, but also one of the ends of socialism is extreme violence and massive deaths as well.
Right. With economic repression ultimately comes political repression, and we've seen this across the Americas and Latin America, where socialism really is like a recurring cancer that keeps coming back. And so you're seeing in Venezuela not just people waiting in line or simply not able to get basics like food, even the most fundamentally basic forms of medicine, for example, just unavailable even at any price, but also violence occurring. And, you know, could it happen here? It seems far-fetched, but look next door, actually, or at least farther to the south, to Argentina, basically a country that went from first world to third world thanks to socialism. Luckily, they've turned the corner. They've elected a center-right reformist, and there's a real opportunity to bounce the socialist in Venezuela and in Brazil, but it's going to take basically a people power movement to do it, especially in Venezuela.
You know, I guess, though, Steve, it sounds sexy, particularly to young people, to get a whole bunch of things for free. It sounds good to get things in the name of social justice, things that were done wrongly in the past to your ancestors, but it's failed everywhere in the world. Venezuela has the highest inflation rate in the world, the highest murder rate in the world. It is just, and it's not that far from where we are on the map and ideologically.
Charles, every single supporter of Bernie Sanders who supports this social view, if they feel the burn, they're going to get burnt, just like the people in Venezuela. Look, Donald Trump has made it very clear that this is what's going to happen to this country if we elect someone to the presidency of the United States that believes in socialism. He believes in capitalism. He believes in free enterprise, entrepreneurship. This is the message we need to get to young people. You've got to work hard for what you want in this life. It can't be given to you.
You know, it's interesting, too, because they over the last few years, they've given a raise to the Army. They've given them big-time raises, like 45%, big raises, and there's a state of emergency already. I think there's a real high chance we could see some bloodshed, major bloodshed.
You know what, Charles? When I was in the Navy, I saw the same scenario with the Russian military. The Soviet Union poured billions of dollars into their military at the expense of the people who lived there. They were starving, they couldn't eat, they had to wait on lines for food, and eventually it collapsed. This is what happened in Venezuela, and it could happen here if we don't watch ourselves.
You know, part of that is the people there become desensitized, and it reminds me of a presser in Birmingham that FBI Director James Comey just had, suggesting that Americans have displayed what he says is a peculiar indifference to the violence and murder that's taken place across this country. He noted that in 2016 alone, 216 people were murdered in Chicago, more than 70 killed in Las Vegas. I want to bring in Gianno Caldwell to talk about this. Earlier today, a report out of Tennessee of a woman whose child was maimed in a drive-by gang shooting. She was set to testify. There's a picture of her and a child, and she was murdered today, Gianno. What kind of a country sits by and allows this to happen?
Yeah, you know what? And I'm from Chicago. I'm not just from Chicago. I'm from the south side of Chicago, where in my hometown, my mom was addicted to crack cocaine and heroin. So we lived in situations where the lights and gas were off at the same time, putting us in communities where this kind of thing has happened constantly. Right now, there's been about 1,200 people shot to this day from the beginning of the year in May. And we see this constantly. Nothing is being done by the Democratic Mayor Rahm Emanuel. And Bill O'Reilly rightly pointed out that something needs to be done. And I'm hoping that under President Trump, who has mentioned issues like this, we will see a concentrated effort to relieve this kind of stress off of communities.
You know, Christian, I also grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood. And, you know, one of the things is it's tough because you know that these violent perpetrators never go to jail, or if they do, they come out so quickly. Who would want to step up and tell the police or say anything? The citizens are being held hostage. I'm hoping that one day we'll get a poster child, maybe this woman and her daughter, someone to wake up America and say, guys, we've gone too far. This is crazy.
Hopefully, here in San Francisco, we already had one, Kate Steinle, who was murdered not far from where I am, just over by the Embarcadero, who was killed by someone who'd been expelled from this country a number of times, who'd been, I believe, convicted of felonies, an illegal immigrant. And where you sit in New York City, you have a mayor, and he's not the only Democrat who's basically declared war on the cops. Now, not every, there are, of course, bad apples in any large organization, but we should realize the police are on our side, and we need to give them the tools to take violent criminals off the street, give prosecutors the tools to keep them off, get rid of judges who are soft on crime. And this has declined as an issue lately, but I do think it's coming back. And I think Donald Trump could really key off of just the fact that the Democrats have put themselves in a position where they are anti-cop.
Right. Steve, this is an economic story. You don't have prosperity without peace and people being able to walk out into the street. And it is coming back because of what people call the Ferguson effect. But, I just wonder, I think it's gone too far. I hope that all of these names that start becoming part of we start to know about it and we do something about it.
Charles, the police will always do their job. Every horrific story we're talking about is at the doorstep of every politician supporting politically correct.
We got breaking news, and I got to share it with the audience. A federal judge